benefit.
What do you think about the drastic changes that are being proposed right now?
Everything is all the engineer development is thriving for efficiency. You want to get more gas mileage, right? You make better engines. You have engines that use less gas and drive more miles. Electric is the next step. It has its own set of setbacks. You have to mine these batteries. You don't know what happens to them after they expire.
Right.
They do deteriorate. I'm not sure how much lithium is recyclable. So it's going to create this other set of problems in society. Like, if you want to have something without any problems, just ride a horse.
Are you a
and then
little
you're limited.
skeptical about let's say, the economic interests behind those industries that are shifting right now?
We live in a capitalist society. Everything's an economic interest.
Right.
The problem is that
I just want to understand, like,
old
if what is being proposed and the narrative that is being pushed forward it's actually, it's not being done out of bad faith, just because there are economical incentives behind it. Let's say
there's more economic
like
incentives in the status quo, in keeping things as they are to shift. It's a fight to shift. It's not a fight to stay the same, because the oil barons, the OPEC of the world, and the oil producers don't want to make their own, black gold irrelevant.
That's why it has to start with a big problem that involves everybody having to making some certain sacrifices and certain changes in order to solve the problem, let's say. So the environmental issues are being shown to the population as a big, let's say, the enemy of the humanity.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't do something jointly,
fairly soon and jointly,
jointly, we are going to be, we're going to suffer some real catastrophic consequences. So do you think that before there is an actual physical change, there needs to be a mentality change, and that's why those ideas, like, let's say, the consumption of meat idea, all the things that we do regularly that would create that sort of impact in the environment, do you think that those ideas are being slowly put into people's minds so we can change our ways to see things, and then they're gonna, empirically change the legislation, the laws, or implement certain, regulations that will slowly change the way people live their lives, even like the things that we eat, for example?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a part of that. Like, look at, for example, recycling and plastic consumption. We've got so accustomed to using plastic and throwing it away, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to a place like Indonesia and you see where the plastic ends up, which is everywhere, right? The pollution's in the oceans, it's in the land. Like, there's no culture of there's a use and there is no follow-up, right? Here, the same thing happened. There was always, like, something is invented.
There's no sustainable process.
Yeah, people start using stuff, and then they don't care about the outcome. You just, like, use it, you throw it out, and then it ends up somewhere. And then when you start seeing, oh my God, this is a huge problem, let's do something about it, then you find a solution and you come it back around, and then now we're going into a place where we're discovering that, most of this plastic is not recyclable.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's a single use, and this is going to end up in the landfill, or it's going to, end up in the ocean, or this, or that, and the other. This is probably not a good idea. And then we go back to the original ideas of maybe using glass, because you can reuse glass indefinitely. You just have to melt it down.
But using plastic's a lot cheaper.
It's cheaper. It's more convenient. It's a little
faster
bit. Sometimes it's safer, because it's more sterile, maybe. So the problem is, we, as a society, we've gotten so accustomed to these little conveniences that we don't want to change our way of life. But maybe we were sold these very much convenient things to do and how to behave, and they were just sold to us. They were just trying to make a buck. It was novelty, and we got too used to them. And turns out they're not a good idea. And that is, I think, a lot of the stuff that we do in our daily lives, it can fall into that category. So how much are we willing to adjust and to adapt for the greater good? That's, I have nothing against you eating meat. I need to understand the real impact. I need to understand two things about the meat industry: its impact on the emissions and its sustainability.
Right.
Right. Those are two metrics that are very important to me, because
I think
if
you also
you're
should
defending,
try to understand if meat is an essential food for
I don't
human
care.
beings.
That's not my question.
For
My
human
question
beings
is
to strive.
right. I don't care about that. I care about
But you
its
should, though.
sustainability. No, well, if you want to eat meat, go ahead, knock yourself out. But if you want to argue that everybody should eat meat, I want to
No.
understand, if we're 7 billion hungry mouths, should we all have steak for dinner every morning and every lunchtime and every dinner time? Because maybe that's the best menu that you can have for all
No,
for your
I think
body.
there are ways to create a sustainable market, a sustainable
Well, I would love to hear
production
them.
process, that would be able to feed everybody. So I think the problem is much more organizational, administrative, the way things are being done, than because these things are being done, and we have to simply shut off and teach people that eating meat is bad for you and is bad for you and is bad for the environment, instead of making those adjustments that would allow more sustainability within, in the production process, and more sustainability in the end game, and everybody will be able to, strive on those, nutritious food without having to worry about
Uh,
the environmental impact.
Sure, but I'll play your game. Like, let's say that meat is the best food
But
that
is
you can have.
is that being said to people though?
Doesn't
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think that the problem is being put in a different way. My question is, let's start by the principle everybody should eat meat, and meat is the healthiest thing that you can eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how much meat do we have to produce daily to feed the world population? Who wants to eat meat? Let's say that everybody wants to eat meat. There's 7 billion people, right? How many cows do have to be in existence to feed 7 billion people every day?
Right.
Can you really say that this is the best thing that we can do for ourselves and for the planet? What are the consequences of this huge farming?
Right.
Can you keep up with the land? Does the cow need to live in the box because there's so many cow and there's so much land that you have to raise the cow on, or the cattle on? I want to understand. Otherwise, we have to look at it. Oh, meat is what it always was. It's a luxury product. Like, throughout history, eating meat was for the richest of the rich, because the most you could get maybe is a chicken or two, but like a freaking cow, and kill a cow without fridge, without, this thing wouldn't last. You have to salt it, you have to like conserve it in all of these kinds of ways, and not everybody could eat. Plus, you didn't have the farming that you have today, but you can guarantee the health and outcome of your cow, the time of the fat cows, as they say in Portugal. Because if
So wait, you're saying that throughout history, meat was more, like, in the past, was more of a luxury thing?
yeah, because you don't have, the population was
I mean,
also
it was
less
just
people
not
to
industrialized, but I feel like
But
a lot more families had their own little piece of land and they cultivated like they
but
had.
how much can you have throughout, right? Like, I remember having a teacher that was from the north of Portugal, and he said, like, I would have to eat every day what the land. It was season of the beans, so it was beans every day, morning, night, and evening. And then it would shift, and whatever was the crop at the time, that's what they had to eat. So you were very much more limited.
Right.
Raising livestock has all these kinds of challenges, and if you think about in an age before there was, what's it called? Fertilizer, and you could guarantee crops and you can guarantee food for your animal, you wouldn't be feeding your own grain to the thing, right? You would probably eat the grain more often than to give it to the animal so you can eat the animal later.
Mm-hmm.
It's a meat, and the cows, they're a very inefficient way to grow. They eat a lot of stuff and it takes a long time, so you have to have a lot of them for you to be able to keep having a meat diet throughout the year, all year long. So I think there was a lot of logistical problems that were solved in the 20th century by the invention of fertilizer, by the massification of agriculture, and you had the surplus that you can then feed to the cows. So, okay, let's not think about how it always was. Let's think about what we can do now with the technology that we have today, right? Tell me, how many cows would you need, to eat, to feed everybody? And the people who don't eat cow, like, people, the Hindus, or everybody in India who worship the cow, and like, Jewish people don't eat pork, so just mix and match. But can you actually have a sustainable model where everybody eats, or is it the privilege thing? Like, okay, I want to eat meat because I can afford it, and we're gonna keep the farm smaller, and we're not gonna mass produce, and we're just gonna. But each cow is gonna cost a bajillion dollars, and my burger is gonna cost $20, and my T-bone is gonna cost $50. That's more sustainable. But if you tell me that you can do the massification of production and still have very little to no environmental impact, or even sustainable or regenerative, whatever you want to buzzword you want to call it, then I'm all for it. Like, if you can prove that there's no impact and everybody can have it, let's go crazy. If not,
Right.
I would vote for like the shrinking of the industry, and having a price match, and look at it as the luxury item that it might be, that it always used to be, and place it back in the in a sustainable bracket. And that's really my 2 cents on the subject.
Yeah, no, it's valid to look at issues and try to adjust things in order to make the market the production process more sustainable.
Because we all want sustainability.
But
at all
I
walks
feel
of
like
life.
it's like, to a degree, certain actions and certain things that are just natural to our existence are being vilified in the name of environmental.
Well, they became natural due to all these revolutions that I just explained, but it wasn't natural for
the
everybody
consumption
to
of
eat.
meat.
Yeah, the massification of the consumption of meat.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, we had to organize ourselves, to be able to have this sort of civilization and
Yeah.
the sort of society that we have nowadays. But I'm just talking about the fact that we as human beings, since
The dawn of time.
since the dawn of time, since our primords, primords.
No, you mean your
Primordios.
ancestors, since the primordial times.
Primordial times, we have been feeding off of animals.
Well, some people have the ones that you can hunt, but it's not always guaranteed. So that's to think that everybody had steak at every meal or every single working day. That's irrealistic.
Eating
I
animals,
don't think.
Eating
Yeah,
animals
in general. If you can catch them.
So to label that as unnatural, I think it's wrong.
It's not unnatural. But now we're talking about the population of the world was like a few hundred million, and it has been throughout history. And now we're looking at 7 billion.
Just
It's a
exponentially
huge,
growing.
It's a huge, but it's very different.
Because also we have had the incredible ability to adapt and to survive.
Well, technology
and
helped
to
a lot.
strive,
Of that.
of course.
Technology.
And we created. So that's our ability to. That's
Yeah,
what
but
I'm
that's
saying
not
too.
natural. In a way, it didn't happen through nature. It happened through the ingenuity of the mankind. It's a little bit different. When we talk about stuff that was synthesized or stuff that was created in a lab, you can't.
Well, but can
you,
we say
you
that?
can't say that everything is natural because it was made by something that was natural. Mankind is natural. Everything it does is natural. Like a transistor is natural. I mean, I guess you can make that point, but you know what I'm saying?
Natural, I'd say, like essential for our existence. I would say for our survival.
Right.
That's what I mean by natural. Something that we've been doing throughout time, throughout history, that it's been just proving to be the way we do things.
Well, I disagree. I think natural is dying of old age at 30 something. That's natural. Mankind has died more at 30, time-wise, not numbers, but time-wise, than
I don't know if that's entirely true.
That is entirely.
I don't know.
Yeah, people used to die of toothaches, and all of this. Remember,
I heard that story before, but I don't know if that's
I probably told you.
that's entirely true, because we have certain tribes even nowadays.
But we're talking about nowadays. We're talking about
Yeah, but still live in very precarious conditions. They're hunter gatherers, like they live in their tribes. They
No, I see
they
what
don't
you're
really make the same use of medicine and technology like we do, and they seem to be striving just fine and
Well-
living until they hunt animals, they eat honey.
Yeah, no,
you
that
know,
you said
and
something that's important. The
it's
difference
interesting
is,
to see that sometimes they are not even having the same health issues as we do in the modern society because, they've been basically um, doing these things that seem to be more natural of human existence than what we are doing nowadays. Like when you look at diet, for example, that's all they eat. They eat, let's say, honey, and they eat animals and animal derived, things that they produce
hmm
themselves. Um, and if you look at the rates of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, they don't have any of those issues
well,
that
it's
are actually killing a lot of us. So that makes me put it to perspective, the way that we've been living in the modern society and, the food pyramid that we, I'm just using diet as a as
yeah,
a
yeah,
as an
yeah.
example.
I know where you're coming from. What I meant to say is like
They don't
the
seem to
more
be dying
complete
of toothaches.
the more
That's
complete
what I'm saying.
angle that I'm giving you, it would be there was even historically there's a big difference between living in the countryside versus living in cities. Cities had always been riddled with disease, especially before you had like sewage systems. Like everybody just lived in their own filth.
Right.
So diseases would arise much more frequently, and people would actually suffer more in these big conglomerates historically. And people tended to live in cities because cities offered the city walls, which added, layers of defense of invasion and this and that and the other. So it's kind of like if you live in the countryside, you probably have a healthier life. It's a harder life because you have to work from sun up to sundown. But yeah, so that's where the expression like died.
But
Died
you know
very
what?
young.
What we should do? We should take a whole week studying
Of course.
the subject, and then we come here and have an actual discussion. And then I'll put my perspective, and you put your. I mean, you
Mhm.
seem to be a lot more. You
I mean,
seem to have taken a lot more time to look into that
well, this is
environmental questions
yeah, because this is
than
not
me.
new for me. Like I've been hearing it
But
before it became a controversial subject.
yeah,
That's why it's so surprising to me. And again, like I told you, like most of my sources are either I wouldn't say primary sources, but they're definitely science education
but I
based.
think it became controversial when people started
Like
under.
the Tucker Carlsons of the world, I'm coming
No,
after
no,
your
no.
burgers.
Well,
It's
not.
like, thanks, Tuck.
I mean,
You're the
yeah. I mean,
best.
those are the populists. The people that are trying attention seekers of the world. I would say they like to inflame every subject, and the way they communicate things generate that. It's very inflammatory. The
hmm
way they
Yeah,
communicate their
because they sell.
ideas.
That's capitalism intertwining with
Well, it
communication,
becomes more of
sensationalism,
yeah.
make money.
It becomes more of a form thing than the actual content what
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
saying. So I think it became controversial when people started realizing that the means and the way that the problem was being approached didn't really match with the size of the problem itself.
Hmm.
That's why I was talking about the proportion thing.
hmm
I like to give
Keep the perspective.
keep yeah exactly and give the attention where attention is due, proportional to the issue,
hmm
and I feel like things are being taken out of proportion, and I feel that this taken out of proportion, maybe it may have a a a political intention behind it, so there can be more control, there can be more government, can be more government involved in our individual decisions. Now we go back to the beginning of our conversation, because there needs to be an overall enemy. There needs to be something that we all need to make sacrifices and jeopardize in order to save the world. And when we look at climate change or the climate issue, that's let's say that's an enemy of everybody. You know, it's not just an enemy of this nation of that or that nation. It's a worldwide preoccupation. It's a worldwide,
Yeah, it's a civilizational problem.
problem. Exactly. So I think taking the taking the problem out of proportion, I think it opens up space for corruption, for the government to say, okay, we're going to limit the amount of meat that you're going to eat now. Okay, so we're going to take away your nutrition here. Okay, so we're going to limit this. We're going to regulate this. We're going to regulate that. And the more, the more policies, the more regulation that inflates the government and that gives them more power to make decisions over our lives and the way we are, making decisions.
Yeah, but
so
all
I don't
of
know.
this, all of this falls again. It's the basic conspiracy. They want to control. They want to do this. They want to do that. I keep asking why.
I mean, we
You know,
just gotta
why
look
more,
at the
why
evidence
more, why
sometimes,
more? What evidence? That's the problem.
Well, I mean,
like you're saying, like they want to have
been
bad
here for
nutrition. They want us to starve us to death. Is this what they want?
I don't know.
It's so easy. Just stop paying the farmers what they pay for just getting yields, and you'll crash the system. Do you want to see the world burn? It's super easy. Like the government subsidizes.
Yeah, but are we moving towards
agriculture.
a potential global government?
Here we go. Join us next time. Hello everybody, and thank you for watching until the end. This has been Woke Wars, and I hope you liked our conversation. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Tell us what you'd like to hear us talk about next. Also, check out some of our other episodes. We post every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We will see you on the next one.